Hi, my name is Silvia Christmann. I'm a growth coach and business mentor here in New York City, and I'm an outlier.
Welcome to Outlier on Air with Ever Gonzalez, the show where we interview the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. Learn how grit, failure, and success are all a part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Silvia Christmann. She is a growth coach and business mentor. Silvia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We're excited to have you for a whole lot of reasons, and we're going to get into it in the next half an hour or so. But you are a growth coach, a business mentor. You've done a lot of great things in your career. You've lived in, about 7 different countries. You're German, born and raised. We have so many questions, and we're just really excited to have you. So again, welcome.
Can't wait to get started. Thank you.
Good. So let's talk about you right now. Where are you calling us from right now?
I'm calling you from New York City.
How's life in New York City, entrepreneurship-wise, just living there right now in the fall?
Well, the fall is busy. I feel everybody gets back to work. Everybody comes back to the city. It is still sunny outside, so the energy is really high, and people are launching products and creating new things. And so everybody seems to be very, very busy and very, very excited about this next frontier and finishing strong in Q4 before the end of the year.
And so for you specifically, you have a lot of clients in New York City, or are they all over the world?
They're all over the world.
Okay. What is there, because you've lived in a lot of different locations, because you're not the typical growth coach, business mentor, because of all the research that we've done on you. You're doing something a little bit different, and I want to kind of get into how you work, what kind of clients you get, what kind of different your business approach is for helping your clients. So let's kind of dig right into it right now. Tell us exactly what you do and how you do it.
Sure. I like to call it combining the art of ambition with authentic living and curating mindful leadership. What that means to me is that I work primarily with founders, startup CEOs, people that are really passionate about what they do, people that some of them create purpose-driven businesses, and generally speaking, people that are really interested in creating a new form of leadership with a different form of mindfulness that carries through their leadership style.
And so what's your background that you decided to do this now? I mean, you've done a lot of different things like we mentioned, but why this? Why now?
Well, I've only ever worked for and with entrepreneurs, mostly very successful serial entrepreneurs, and I had the privilege to work with them and learn from them how to make your dreams a reality and how to navigate the emotional landscape of change. And very early on in my career, straight out of college, I joined a startup, and I really enjoyed the intersection of starting something that was an idea, making it a reality, selling it, getting people to come on board, and making it into a profitable business. Mm-hmm. And that has always been a passion of mine, and I love watching the passion people have for the products and services and companies that they build. And having worked with serial entrepreneurs, I learned a lot from them about failure and the art of failure and what you can learn from failure rather than being afraid of it. And then eventually, I think in my late 20s, I hit a bit of a turning point myself. I was very tired. I struggled with fatigue and burnout, and I had more and more. For 6-7 years prior to that, I'd started to invest myself into yoga and meditation, and I had health issues that I had to solve. And with yoga, meditation, and well-being, and focusing on more well-being, I was able to create a dramatic change in my life. And so the product of coaching that you see today is really a combination of those two phases of my life. The art of ambition, having burnt me out and having had to learn how to create a life that I really loved, using mindfulness, meditation, holistic health, and self-care to really fuel my drive rather than letting my ambition burn me out. And creating a form of leadership coaching from that place where through self-observation and mindfulness practices and bringing your authentic strengths to the table and curating that in others is really how this coaching practice evolved and why I still do it today. I love doing it. I can't imagine living my life in any other way because it literally combines absolutely everything that I want to do, that I find extraordinarily interesting and that I'm passionate about.
You know, when it comes to entrepreneurs, you kind of mentioned failing, right? And so we've heard this many times before, fail and fail fast, right? And I that makes sense, right? In some instances, but sometimes when we fail as entrepreneurs, right, it's hard to get back up, and it's hard to want to have the desire and the energy to kind of keep going. And I'm assuming most of the people that are listening to us right now have had a failure or two in our past careers. Are there any things that we can do right now to kind of prepare for those things that are going to come up in the future? Or maybe we're lying flat on the mat right now. What can we do to kind of help get past that hurdle, that failure kind of label or stigmatism, or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think what holds most of us back is the fear of failure and the shame that we experience when we fail, when and if we fail. It's being embarrassed about about the aftermath that occurs when we walk out into the world with these grandiose visions that sometimes resemble delusions of grandeur, which you have to have as an entrepreneur, where you have to have the ability and say, no, this is going to work. I don't know how yet, but it will work. And communicate to the world your conviction and certainty that you can make this happen. And sometimes that doesn't work out. And there's a lot of shame that comes with that. So knowing that you will be embarrassed, and also knowing that you can absorb that loss, and say, yeah, okay, you know what? I gave it all and it didn't work. I made some mistakes. So sometimes, it's just simply luck plays a large part in this, and being able to say, okay, I did fail at this and now I'm doing something else. And being able to own that. Mm-hmm.
It's funny, even in this culture, the entrepreneurship kind of a culture, right? Again, we're told to fail and fail fast. And, I'm sitting here thinking, if one of my partners, one of my buddies, one of my whatever people within my circle failed, I would be very understanding and very supportive, which most people would be, I think. But if I'm the one that fails, right, it's hard for me to kind of accept that and like you said, not wear it so heavily. I don't know why is that? Why do we kind of put this whole thing on us when we don't really have to?
Well, we pour our hopes and dreams and our soul into the work as entrepreneurs, and having to accept that we may have been chasing the wrong dream is hard. We leave a lot of hopes and dreams at the table when we finally realize that it's time to walk away. And that's a process that may not always happen easily. And I also think that we're told that this fail and fail fast. I also think it's often fail better, and fail again.
Nice. I like that.
Right? Because the entrepreneurial journey is not it's not a steady upward momentum. It's much more of a roller coaster ride that at some point you'll get used to the emotional roller coaster that comes with it, so it doesn't faze you as much anymore. And potential failures over time just become another glitch on the radar, right? They're just like, oh, okay, well now, and this led me to another thing. When one door closes, another window opens becomes a much faster assumption that we make. We don't dwell in we don't stand in front of the closed door. We realize that whatever fell apart leads us to something new, and we stay in a forward momentum. But that takes practice, and very few of us are born with this because we're given structure. We're supposed to succeed. We think we will succeed, and learning that shame and fear and failure is part of the process. That you learn how to fail better and fail again, which is part of the process of succeeding. It comes through practice. It's not something you can teach.
if we were to work with you, you work one-on-one, right, with serial entrepreneurs and more seasoned entrepreneurs as well. If we were to sign up and work with you, what would that look like? What would we see? What would we get? What would we experience?
Well, I would spend some time with you initially to figure out if you and I are actually a good fit. That's very important to me because I want to make sure that the people I work with, I thoroughly enjoy their work and their perception and their hunger to make a difference, create change, and move themselves to the next level of success. And then we'll custom create a program that's either a quarterly, like for 3 months, maybe 6 months, or maybe even a year, that we custom create and tailor towards where they are today versus where they want to go. And we'll be working together either weekly or bi-weekly to move them forward. Yeah, to move them forward.
You know, I'm always fascinated by coaches or mentors or these type of thought leaders. You know, you and those like you do a lot of good in the world, right? Especially for individuals, entrepreneurs, like we discussed. But and we always see you guys in a positive light, and always charging forward, and always being the person that we, for the most part, want to be like. But you must have hard days and disappointments and even failures. How do you personally overcome those? If you see them coming or if you're in the middle of it?
I always like to say that I didn't learn what I teach from books. I learned it because I have failed. I've experienced substantial amount of failure and humiliation and heartbreak on a professional and personal level. And, you know, I had to learn a great variety of tools to get myself back up and move forward. And through that have also developed a passion for it, because it's been very interesting to me to learn that I am not the only one. I often teach from experience because I can relate. I like to share my own experiences and failures to allow people to see through osmosis that they're not alone. Some people don't like to talk about how they feel and what it makes them feel. So giving transparency, and you know, I've given talks about this quite a lot as well, is very helpful for people to know and lower the barrier that they might feel around their own facets of shame.
I love that answer. Experience. You know, we can go to school, we can learn all these things that are out there in books and in blogs and podcasts, but unless you've kind of really been through it, it would be hard for me to sign off if all of your experience, or you know, whoever I'm working with, it's all in books. But you said you've been through it, you know what it feels like. So I'm gonna, you know, it feels like I can really be all in with the things that you're teaching and the things that you're helping us with. So great answer, thank you for that. Now I remember, I can't remember if it was an article or a podcast that I heard that you were doing, but something that I kind of struggle with every once in a while, and I'm assuming a lot of the people listening to struggle with. You were talking about procrastination, and you have a little bit of a twist to it, I think, something that I haven't heard much about, where you've mentioned in the past that procrastination can be good at times. How so?
Yeah, I like to call it making your procrastination your superpower.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when you dial in with yourself and you take a few steps back and you look at why you're procrastinating, when you are procrastinating, and how you are procrastinating, it often leads you back to you're placing more of an emphasis on things that you value versus self-prescribed things you think you need to be doing that you're doing out of a false sense of obligation. And there's a huge misalignment between what it is that you want out of life, what it is that you want to accomplish, and what is on your daily to-do list. There's a difference between active procrastination and passive procrastination. And passive procrastination would be, you know, you're on your couch every single day and, you know, life kind of passes you by and nothing gets done, in which case I would say you might be mildly depressed and there are other issues and factors at hand. But if procrastination is you're actively engaged in life and you're placing an emphasis on different things and constantly feel you are not getting things done, it has much more to do with readjusting your values, reclaiming your time, getting really in touch with yourself and your priorities and communicating clear boundaries from that place. And with that, you learn how to manage delay. So if you're in a leadership position and learn how to take a step back and not jump at everything that's in front of you, you will see over time that some of the things didn't need your attention. They dissolved themselves before you had to jump in and do something. And also there were other people on your team whose job it was that were more than happy to work on it. So learning how to redefine your values, set boundaries for your time and where you place it, and learning how to manage delay without anxiety are going to allow you to make procrastination into a superpower rather than something that you use to beat yourself up.
I used to think that my background is in logistics, so it was not entrepreneurship. I built companies, and but now that I'm doing Outlier and the podcast and the events and speaking and all those things, I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs of all different types and all different talents and different skill levels and things like that. And I always picture these type A type of personalities, right, that are charging forward every single day. They're very active. They're very happy. They're very smart. But I'm also noticing some of the procrastination in those type of people as well. With your clients, I mean, we don't have to get to specifics, but procrastination seems to be a part of just about everybody's life, right? I used to think it was just kind of the medium road type of entrepreneurs, but even the very successful people struggle with procrastination. Have you seen some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I see it in them. I see procrastination more of a form of just overreacting with a sense of urgency. Okay. There's constantly reacting to what's out there because they're such type A's, have to react and act immediately without, and no ability to manage delay, which then delays things on their to-do list and action items that would move them, the company, and the processes forward, because they're that sense of urgency is so overwhelming that they get sucked into the inbox vortex, because they're in this constant state of emergency, or even the endless thread on Facebook. So it's very, very common, and has a lot to do with, can I take a step back? Can I just breathe, meditate for a second? Can I see what actually requires me to react now? Where do I have time? What can I put on the back burner? Is poor time management on your part? Does that require an emergency on mine? Mm-hmm. Can I differentiate between that? And can I, instead of reacting, communicate with people very clearly what the vision is, what the goals are, what the problems and solutions are that we can use and implement? Am I communicating from a place of calm and reason, or am I just reacting to what's in front of me? And that right there, I think, really switches. That's where procrastination switches from, things not getting done to becoming a superpower.
It's funny because it makes sense, right? Everything you're talking about makes sense. Why shouldn't it work that way? It does work that way, but it's hard for us as entrepreneurs to implement, right? I mean, even though it makes sense in our heads, sometimes we just can't get around to making it happen, and that's one of the things that really intrigues me with just humans, right? Because life is messy and it's not perfect, and even though we know that there's the promised land, it's kind of, for whatever reason, we have a hard time trying to get there or getting there for. In our entrepreneurship journey. Said
life is messy. Entrepreneurship is messy.
Right?
And yeah, it is. It is. And it's like, can we get comfortable with that? Can we get comfortable with messiness? And can we take a step back and say, all right, well, I'm just going to maintain my peace of mind and equanimity while there's messiness around it, and I'm going to meet it with a calm sense of reason.
Yes.
Can I do that? And there's a little bit of, it's the mental discipline behind that. It's the mental discipline that gives you the freedom to react and not respond.
I love it. With now you're running, this is your business. You work with a lot of successful entrepreneurs, a lot of different industries, but this is your business. So how do you run your business of coaching and mentoring? I mean, how do you get the word out there? How do you let people know that this is something that you do? When you introduce yourself at a party or at a conference, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I could be doing that better, probably. It's word of mouth. I've been very,
Okay.
very lucky. I very rarely run around and introduce myself to people promoting what I do.
Uh-huh.
So
your clients are referring their friends and their colleagues. Good.
Yeah.
Do you see that being the case for the coming years, or are you putting an effort into more of the branding and the marketing for your own personal business?
Yeah, I've occasionally made some attempts at that. I have to say it's not my strongest trade. And then speaking of the art of procrastination, it makes its way onto the back burner very quickly because I don't find a lot of joy in it. And I find a lot more joy in doing a podcast, talking to people, being actively engaged in the community and having conversations is something I just enjoy so much. And somehow that has always led to people being curious enough about me to ask what I do and how they could work with me.
Nice. And so with that being said, what's the single most important reason for your success up until this point?
Good question. My infectious enthusiasm for life.
That's a good one, right? Why not? Yeah. Absolutely. That attracts people, right? We're attracted by positiveness, by light, by those things. So that's the answer. That's good.
Yeah, I think so. It couldn't be that I've done anything. I've never done anything the way I was supposed to. So can't be that. I've never followed any rules. So it has to be something that makes people curious. So that would be my guess. Yeah.
Well, that's so people get curious. They come. They investigate. They find out about you, and you must bring value, right? Because it's working. People are working with you. They're referring their friends.
Yeah, of course.
I love it. Now I'm curious as to. Now let's get into your background a little bit more, right? We talked about it at the start of the show. Born and raised in Germany, you've lived in, did I get it right, 7 or 8 different countries? Tell us about you growing up, what your parents were like. What got you to this point in your not just career but just life in general.
Yeah, so I grew up in the suburbs in Germany, a very sort of like an upper middle class neighborhood. It was very, you can imagine these like perfectly manicured German front lawns. That gives you, nice. That gives you a picture. And it felt, I grew up with my mom and my sister, and we spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and we were the only divorced family at the time in the whole village, and it just was, we were kind of on the outside. And I went to hippie school, and I was sent to hippie school. I wasn't sent to receive regular education. We traveled as much as possible, probably 4 months out of the year.
Wow.
Around the world. So I would say that fitting in was hard. As long as I can't remember a time where I fit in. My experience that I gathered around the world with my, playmates that I had growing up traveling, which just never made sense to all my kids on the playground that stayed home and made friends with each other. And I think I was just always an outsider, and my stories didn't match, and I think my imagination was quite wild, and I was quite wild, and I marched to my own tunes, and it just, I couldn't wait to leave. So I got on once, I think I was an exchange student when I was 16 in Australia, and then ever since then I stayed out on the road. I traveled, I hitchhiked around South America. I loved the art of adventure, and I wanted to create a life unlike the world I was raised in. It felt stuffy, it felt limiting, and I thought that there was a whole world out there that could offer me excitement, new perspectives, and experiences that I was never going to find where I came from.
Some people look for that all their lives and they don't find it, no matter how much traveling they do, how many people they meet. Has your thirst for this type of adventure and knowledge and experience, are you still searching for that, or are you a little bit more satisfied with what you've experienced and the things that you've done in the world?
It's a very good question. I think my attitude has shifted tremendously. I think in the beginning, the first lesson I learned was everywhere you go, there you are. Mm-hmm. was shocking to me that change your environment and your problems come with you.
Yeah, right.
Who knew?
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. So I grew out of the habit of pulling one of my geographics and just, new place, new people, new adventure, and really dove inwards a lot more because like the journey inward became more interesting. Now, that never stopped me from exploring the world, but I explore the world very differently. I think I now go to places because I want to expand my experience of life. I usually go places because it might be a workshop or a journey, or there's usually a mission behind it. While when I was younger, I was just aimlessly going wherever I felt like it. If the wind was blowing east, I was going. If there was a car going that way, I was probably going to be. So
you've been to several different countries. You mentioned, right? What are some of the ones that you've been to? You mentioned Australia. What else?
Well, all of South America when I was younger, because I hitchhiked my way across there. Nice. And I covered most of Europe. There's very few. It's probably easier to mention the ones I haven't been to, which I think in recent years I've spent more time in Southeast Asia and in India and back to Australia. I think I've been in Australia every year for the last 4 years. It varies. It's very wherever there's. Today I go where I'm called to go. If my work takes me there, I'm going.
Home base
doesn't take me there.
Home base is New York, though, right?
Home base is New York, yeah.
But still doing a lot of traveling. That's great.
My home base is in New York. I don't winter well, so I do tend to find myself in warmer climates during the winter months, and work on my work closer with my client base there, do workshops or have other engagements during that time of the year that I, of course, plan a little bit. It's not a coincidence that usually takes me to the other side of the world at that time of the year.
So no doubt that you've learned a lot personally, right, with the people, with the culture, with just the different things that you've learned throughout all of your travels. But for this next question, let's focus on business-wise. What have you learned business-wise or how people do business in these different cultures and these different places that help you right now with your own business?
Well, the cultural context is very important to understand the way people communicate and what makes them comfortable and uncomfortable. So I tend to work with a lot of people that either are expats from here living in other continents that come across communication problems, or it's the other way around. They're curious about doing more business here and understanding communication in its cultural context. Certain European clients are much work with each other in a much closer capacity than Americans would. They communicate with each other very differently, and what would come across to an American as extraordinarily rude is just simply being direct in another culture. So having had such vast experience across so many different cultures and sectors, it's easier for me to sometimes explain these disconnects to my clients in its cultural context.
I love it. That makes sense, right? And good for you for having experienced that firsthand and now helping others that are trying to figure it out and navigate through their own little journey as well.
Yeah, we're living in a global economy, so
sure.
There's a lot of company that will hire a support team in Asia. But do you understand how to communicate with them effectively to know that to avoid complications, right? It's such a huge part of business these days. Can you outsource? Everybody wants to outsource, but what does that mean for you when you have to communicate to them to get things done?
And there you are to help. All the little things that we don't even think about sometimes too, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So now, last few questions as we start to wrap this up. What keeps you up at night?
Oh, good question. I sometimes worry about launches and products of my clients. Mm-hmm. I run it in my head. I troubleshoot stuff for them. Yeah.
Good. That's the kind of coach, mentor we want, right? That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me worry about it for
That's
you.
right. As long as you're losing sleep, I'm okay. I will sleep like a baby. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So when all of this is said and done, then, right, when at the end of all of this, how do you want to be remembered?
Very good question. I think I want to be remembered as somebody who never took no for an answer. I want to be remembered as someone who's a free spirit, and don't know. It's a good question.
Well, you're certainly well on your way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
with the research that we've done, right? We haven't met personally, but just the feeling that I get, and the conversations that we've had, and doing the research, it sounds like you're doing exactly what you want to be doing, how you want to be doing it. Seems you're happy, you're upbeat, you have obviously a wealth of knowledge behind you, and you can come and go whenever you want, however you want, and that comes across in just this episode, just this conversation that we've had. So,
Well, that's good. Yeah, I want to be remembered as somebody who's never missed a moment. Mm-hmm.
it's important.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget that, right? Our heads are down. We're working on whatever we're working on because it's going to be the next big thing in our minds, right? And sometimes we forget those simple moments that, hey, this is a journey, and enjoy all of it. Don't wait until your product launches, or you hit that $100 million mark, or whatever it is. We get so caught up in that sometimes we need a little bit of a reminder.
Yeah. We all want to make a difference. I think making our lives matter is important to all of us, and not waiting for tomorrow to start is so important to remember. It's I think one of my yoga teachers a decade ago asked me, what would you do if you knew you would die tomorrow? And I thought, probably exactly what I'm doing right now, but good to remember. I made it my mission to don't give up on the things that you want to do today, or don't hope that the whole bucket list concept is so beyond me. I've never had a bucket list. I came up with an idea and I would do it. If I wanted to do something else, I did something else. It just became part of my calendar.
Very inspiring, right? Because a lot of us want to get there. And so now we have a lot of entrepreneurs from all over the world that are listening right now, right, to you. If there's one piece of advice, something they can kind of take away from this conversation from you, what would it be?
Don't quit before the magic happens. Because magic takes perseverance. Mm-hmm.
I love it. That could be on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
I love it. That's good advice, right? Because sometimes we forget. Sometimes, like I mentioned before, it takes
perseverance. Yes. The entrepreneurial journey is not the easier, softer way. It's oftentimes a lot harder. It's magical and it is rewarding, but it takes a lot of patience and practice and perseverance.
I love it. Where can we find you online for those of us that want to connect?
My website, silviachristmann.com. Yeah.
Nice and easy. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. Obviously, we'll have links to Silvia's website, social media accounts. Feel free to connect with her if you've liked what she's had to give here in this episode. Say hello. Connect with her, like I mentioned, and see what she's all about. Silvia, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, for your words of wisdom, for just being open and talking about your experiences. We really appreciate it. No doubt that this episode is going to resonate with a lot of our audience, so we really appreciate it, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Perfect. So, Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.